Nagarjuna is one of the most influential and profound figures in the entire history of Buddhist thought. Living in India around the 2nd century of the Common Era, he is regarded as the founder of the Madhyamaka school of Mahayana Buddhism, a school that radically transformed the way emptiness, reality, and liberation were understood. His teachings would go on to shape not only the development of Buddhist philosophy in India, but also the traditions that spread into China, Tibet, Japan, Korea, and beyond. In fact, it is not an exaggeration to say that without Nagarjuna, Buddhism, as it is known today, would be incomplete. Nagarjuna's biography is partly historical and partly legendary. Exact dates are uncertain, but most scholars place him around the 2nd to 3rd century CE. Tradition tells us he was born in South India into a Brahmin family, though later accounts describe miraculous signs accompanying his birth. According to stories preserved in both Indian and Tibetan sources, he was exceptionally gifted, mastering the Vedic scriptures and later turning to the teachings of the Buddha. Some legends even say he entered the realm of the nāgas, the serpent-like beings that dwell in the depths of the oceans, and there he retrieved hidden texts of the Prajñāpāramitā scrolls, the scriptures on the perfection of wisdom. These tales are symbolic, but they also highlight how intimately his name became connected with the philosophy of emptiness. What made Nagarjuna revolutionary was the depth and rigor with which he analyzed reality. His central teaching is often summarized in the word anyat, or emptiness. Yet emptiness is not a nihilistic void, nor is it an absolute substance. Emptiness means that all phenomena are empty of inherent, independent existence. Everything that exists does so only in dependence on causes, conditions, and conceptual designations. There is no thing that stands alone with its own unchanging essence. Mountains, rivers, people, ideas, even the Buddha himself. Everything arises and passes away in dependence on other factors. This insight is captured in the famous doctrine of dependent origination, which Nagarjuna took to its ultimate philosophical conclusion. His most important work, the Madhyamaka, or Fundamental Verses on the Middle Way, is a masterpiece of philosophical analysis. In terse and elegant verses, Nagarjuna demonstrates how all phenomena, causes, effects, motion, time, the self, even nirvana fail to exist as inherently real. He uses rigorous logic to show that if we assume inherent existence, contradictions quickly arise. For example, if causes and effects were inherently real, they could neither depend on each other nor be independent, leading to logical absurdities. By carefully deconstructing every possible position, Nagarjuna leads the reader to the insight that reality is beyond all conceptual extremes. This is why his philosophy is called the middle way, for it avoids both eternalism, the belief in a permanent self or essence, and nihilism, the denial of all reality. At the same time, Nagarjuna emphasized that emptiness itself is not an absolute truth to cling to. To mistake emptiness as some kind of ultimate substance is to fall into another trap. He warns that emptiness is like medicine. It is meant to cure the disease of clinging, but if one clings to the medicine itself, it becomes poison. Thus he taught that emptiness is empty of inherent existence as well. This self-deconstructing quality of his philosophy prevents it from hardening into dogma, keeping the mind open and flexible. Nagarjuna's thought had deep practical implications for the spiritual path. For him, realizing emptiness was not an intellectual game, but the very key to liberation. Our suffering arises from grasping things as if they were solid and permanent, grasping at the self, at possessions, at ideas. When we see that all things are empty, that they exist only in interdependence and without essence, our attachment and aversion lose their power. Compassion then arises naturally because we recognize that beings are bound by ignorance and clinging, and we wish for them to be free. This union of wisdom and compassion is at the heart of the Mahayana path, and Nagarjuna's teachings give it a profound philosophical foundation over the centuries. Commentators elaborated on Nagarjuna's thought in many directions. Some of his followers developed the Prasajika and Svantrika interpretations of Madhyamaka, differing on the methods of reasoning and debate. Others integrated his ideas with Yogya philosophy, creating syntheses that would influence East Asian Buddhism. In Tibet, Nagarjuna became revered as the second Buddha of reasoning, and his works are studied in the great monastic universities to this day. His logic is considered the sharpest tool to cut through misconceptions about reality. Nagarjuna also wrote treatises on other aspects of the path. Works like the Ratnavalk, or Precious Garland, present guidance on ethics, compassion, and the conduct of a bodhisattva. He also wrote verses on the perfection of wisdom, devotion to the Buddha, and even on topics like medicine and alchemy, though the authenticity of some of these works remains debated. Regardless, his influence extended far beyond philosophy into every corner of Buddhist practice. One of the most striking features of Nagarjuna's thought is how modern it feels, even to readers today. His relentless analysis of concepts anticipates methods later used by philosophers in the West, from skeptical traditions to deconstruction. His critique of essence resonates with scientific perspectives that see the world as dynamic systems rather than fixed substances. His refusal to settle into extremes speaks to the human search for balance and clarity in the midst of conflicting ideologies. It is no wonder that scholars and practitioners continue to find his writings fresh and challenging even after nearly 2 millennia. The legend of Nagarjuna's connection to the nāgas, the serpent beings, may also be interpreted symbolically. In Indian cosmology, nāgas are guardians of treasures hidden in the depths. By retrieving the Prajñāpāramitā scriptures from their realm, Nagarjuna is seen as one who brought the hidden treasure of wisdom into the human world. The ocean represents the depth of reality, and the serpents represent both danger and protection. Thus, Nagarjuna stands as the bridge between myth and philosophy, between the mystical and the rational. His influence on later Buddhist culture cannot be overstated. In China, Madhyamaka thought inspired the Sanlan school, which later influenced Chan and Zen traditions. In Tibet, the entire scholastic curriculum revolves around studying Nagarjuna's works. Japanese philosophers of the Kyoto school in the 20th century drew inspiration from his philosophy of emptiness in dialogue with Western thought. Even outside Buddhism, his insights have fascinated modern thinkers in philosophy, psychology, and physics. The idea that reality lacks fixed essence and exists only in relation has echoes in quantum theory, systems theory, and even postmodern philosophy at the heart of all this, however, remains a simple and profound truth. Clinging creates suffering, and wisdom dissolves it. Nagarjuna's philosophy is not meant to confuse or entangle us in abstract reasoning, but to free us from delusion. He shows us that when we let go of grasping, we discover a freedom that is neither existence nor non-existence, neither eternal nor annihilated. It is a freedom beyond all dualities, and yet one that manifests in compassion and kindness toward all beings. For practitioners, studying Nagarjuna can be both daunting and liberating. His texts demand careful thought and sometimes feel like a maze of logic. But when approached with patience, they reveal a clarity that cuts through the fog of ordinary perception. Many teachers advise combining his philosophy with meditation, so that the insight of emptiness is not merely intellectual, but directly experienced. In meditation, one can observe how thoughts, sensations, and emotions arise and dissolve without a core. This experiential realization aligns perfectly with Nagarjuna's reasoning, and together they create unshakable understanding. In remembering Nagarjuna, we see more than just a historical philosopher. We see a guide who illuminated the middle path between extremes, who offered a vision of reality that is fluid, interconnected, and open. His works remind us that truth is not something to be seized, but something to be seen when grasping ends. His message, though expressed in ancient verses, continues to speak to modern hearts, reminding us that wisdom and compassion are inseparable, and that freedom is found not in clinging to reality, but in seeing its emptiness and interdependence. Nagarjuna's life and teachings invite us to reconsider how we see ourselves and the world. They challenge us to loosen the grip of certainty, to let go of rigid views, and to open to the vastness of reality that cannot be pinned down. They encourage us to cultivate compassion for others, knowing that all beings are caught in the same nets of grasping and ignorance. And they inspire us to walk the path of the Bodhisattva, seeking not only our own liberation, but the liberation of all beings. In this way, Nagarjuna remains alive, not as a distant figure of the past, but as a timeless voice guiding us toward wisdom, compassion, and the freedom that lies beyond all extremes. Thanks for watching. Our channel is new and needs your support. In our channel, you can find many videos on the history and philosophical teachings of Buddhism. Please subscribe to our channel to support the teachings of Buddha on YouTube. Can download our app from Google Play. Get notifications, daily quotes from Buddha, guided meditation methods, articles about Buddhist wisdom and sutras from Pali Canon. Discover inner peace, cultivate mindfulness, and unlock the infinite wisdom of the Buddha with this app. Download link below.